Hey folks, it's JM Shearer here again. Just thought it's about time for me to do another quick vlog here. Don't do these very often because, well, as I've said repeatedly, over the years I've been doing this kind of thing. I usually write because I think I'm better at that than I am on camera, and I'll admit I have gotten better, on this whole video thing, but I still think I'm better at writing. Uh, but this is one of those things where, video's more the way to go with all this, modern, you know, um, internet personality thing, which is what I'm kind of going for here. And I think a video might actually be a little quicker in this regard anyway. Um, so anyway, the topic for this one is, kind of be the whole uh, drama, the whole uh, like change the channel thing that's going on with Channel Awesome and all the producers and stuff that used to be affiliated with the site. I say used to be because uh, most of the ones that were there have apparently left the site for their own or just to be YouTubers or uh, you know whatever, whatnot, that kind of thing. Um, and with all that in mind, I suppose I should, give a little of my own personal background with that. Uh, I'd say I discovered the site in 2008, 2009, because the progression of events was that, hey, I discovered some, video game reviewers, that kind of thing, stuff on YouTube. I think one of them was Spoonie, who had his, own site even back then. And he was eventually picked up by Channel Awesome, where I discovered, quite a few other reviewers I liked, most notably the Nostalgia Critic and Linkara. But, also Brad Jones and a few others that I still watch on, well, a somewhat regular basis anyway. Uh, and well, like I said, it was 2008, 2009 when I first discovered the site, and it was still called That Guy with the Glasses. And I used to go there to watch the reviewers I like because I had not yet discovered um, their blogs and YouTube channels and websites and all that, which it seems a lot of them actually have now, which I think is actually a good thing. But they also had a community blog section, which I started making use of because I keep saying I like to write because I do. And I had some things that I thought would, or some ideas and things that I thought would, fit the site. So, I started working on those, and with the intent to get them posted and see if they would go anywhere. At the time, if memory serves, they had something of a like top 5 users of the week or the top 10, community blogs of the month or something like that. Um, from what I can tell, that didn't really last long enough for it to particularly matter all that much, which is something I can kind of understand because, well, even in the early 2000s, I pretty much come to the conclusion that, with all this, web and internet stuff becoming, more and more available to, more and more people, especially with this written word stuff, anybody who can would post could and often would, which meant there's a lot of well, let's just say not good stuff out there. Uh, and because, like I keep saying, I'm mostly a writer, and through my works in fan fiction in the late 90s, early 2000s, I come to realize that, the more people that were actually using these services, the more people there were who would write the way I draw, which, I'm well, there's a reason why I'm doing this instead of drawing comics with my time right now. It's because the video is going to be the better option for me, and it might have been a smarter thing for me to actually, sit down and take, a couple hours to, write all of this instead of the, 15 minutes or however long it's going to, take me to make this video here. But the thing is, like I said, I can kind of understand why that didn't last long, or their, top, whatever community posts of the whatever the time period was. I can understand why that didn't necessarily last all that long because, it's because it's one of those things where they're actually gonna, if they were actually gonna do that, they were gonna have to come away up with a way of, actually quantifying, what the top, ones were, which is, unless you're doing most views or whatever, that's almost always going to be a subjective thing. And, like I was saying before, if you're going to have really a comment section or a, excuse me, a user post kind of thing, it's, essentially you're setting yourself up with an Olympic-sized swimming pool that you're pretty much going to, fill with, rancid sewage. And, since this was a pretty much a, company sort of thing, they pretty much were telling somebody that, hey, you're going to have to jump in there and, go looking for, anything that looks like it might be valuable or anything. Now, if you've watched What the Fuck Is Wrong With You, which is from a guy by the name of Nash, who runs a website called Radio Dead Air, you know that you can probably find, iPhones and Rolexes and, diamond rings and all sorts of fun shit in there. But, that doesn't change the fact that it's still pretty much a swimming pool full of, rancid sewage. So, and there's the whole matter of, the, like subjectivity and, people calling politics on, even if it was based on numbers, there's always going to be, here's, this list of, like 5 or 10 people whose posts always get the most hits. So I can understand why they did away with that. And, even if my work was mostly, above average or above what the new average is, it probably wouldn't have made the list. But, I can think of actually a few people whose work might have. There's this one guy called Paranormal Rob who does a show called Cartoon Clip Show that actually, is pretty good. I actually follow him on YouTube as well. But he was actually in the community blog section, on Channel Awesome. Kind of like my, Looking Back series was. I had, which was a written blog series on, cartoons and stuff I'd, grown up with and watched mostly through my college years, that kind of thing. But I also did other written series. The only other big one that really comes to mind was, well, actually there are two that come to mind. One was, called Recently Discovered, which I did, a half dozen issues of. And then there was a more recent one called Barely Remembered. Where I did talk about things that were, I'm sure I watched, or I wrote about things I'm sure I watched, but didn't quite talk about or I didn't quite remember well enough to say, yeah, I remember, this is what was going on in my life at the time, and all this other stuff that was really interesting and worth talking about. Um, so there was good stuff, interesting stuff, going on in that community blog section, even if there was a lot of kind of stuff. And like I keep saying, that's actually a fairly subjective thing. So I'm not necessarily going to go after anybody in particular for not being good, because, well, I'm sure they're like me and think their own work's well, maybe not spectacular, but worth sharing. So, that was the one common thing to all of us. But one thing I'd actually wondered for quite a while, and all this, change the channel, whatever is, that's going on right now, started, end of March 2018 or early April, whatever that was, is, well, okay, and when it started, as if anyone in the organization at Channel Awesome even remembered that there was a community blog section there, because but it really came out when all this drama and stuff started, because I started thinking to myself, well, okay, they're losing all these producers, and all these folks are leaving the site that had been there for, well, years and years in a lot of cases. And I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe this will be a good thing for people like Paranormal Rob, who had his own show, which I actually thought was pretty good. There was a guy who drew comics. I think it was called Starbolts. I'm like I keep mentioning, I'm a writer who is the kind of thing where, well, okay, so maybe I don't do videos so well, but maybe they could use someone who's more, okay, I'm gonna write this thing, and we can okay, it's well, here's something we can use for Nostalgia Critic, or okay, here's this maybe this cartoon thing we can give the cartoon reviewer, and have them get with JM, and we can work something that way. But that didn't happen, and actually quite a few things wound up getting answered for me in that regard earlier this week, because I tried to log in. It was like Thursday or Friday. I'm looking at my calendar, which is to my left here, which is, you see me doing that. Just trying to remember what day that was that I tried to go to the blog section, and it wasn't there. So I mean, they've got like the banner across the top of the page. It still lists a blogs section, but when you actually go there, it says this section is unavailable, or can't be found, or something. I mean, I can kind of understand why that got taken down, because I'm sure a lot of the folks that were still active were excuse me again, that were still more active there, were making posts about all this drama, and I can kind of understand why they'd want to minimize all of that. But, the fact that it got taken down or disabled or, whatever happened to it, kind of tells me that, yeah, somebody, who worked for the business side of Channel Awesome actually knew it was there. Now, who that might have been or, what their position in the company might have been, I don't know, don't really care, because like I said, I can understand, like I was saying about that, top whatever posts thing that they had at the very beginning and then got rid of. I can understand why they took this down too, because, well, it's, a lot of, crap and drama that I can understand them not wanting to deal with. But, the longer this went on, another question that kind of popped into my mind was, well, okay, I have stuff there that's like exclusively, in that blog section that I'd kind of like to, retrieve and, maybe, or maybe retrieve and, like create a Tumblr, exclusively for that and repost it there. But, the fact that it's gone, before I had a chance to do that is, well, it's unfortunate, but like so many things in my life right now, I don't actually feel as bad about that as I probably should, because that was, quite a, I mean, given the number of articles I had there and the length of some of them, that was quite a lot of work to, wind up essentially losing because, companies going under or presumably going under from the looks of things. But, as far as that goes, I mean, got, I've got, just volumes of other work that, is just as good. And there are some pieces that fortunately did get saved. Either on my current hard drive or on my personal blog that I'll like put a link to in the description. Just in case anybody's interested in that. But there's other stuff there that I might have saved if I'd have been given a chance. And now I might not have the chance to do that before, Channel Awesome goes under, which, I'm not going to say goodbye and good riddance because it was well, I'm hoping it was a good resource for me, but at this point, I'm honestly not sure if it would have been, because, if you've been following this YouTube channel that I'm on right now, you'll know that for a year and a half or 2 years now, I've actually been doing a fairly regular beverage tasting show, which I actually kind of need to get back to, in spite of the fact that you can see it's not exactly been healthy for me. But I'd kind of like to get back to that. And I've actually been sharing most of those videos, not only on Channel Awesome, but directly through my own Twitter and Facebook feeds, and sometimes on Tumblr and Blogger as well. And I would regularly get actually quite a lot of, views and, even a comment or two. And because I'm not so good at following my analytics, especially on YouTube, I honestly have no idea how many of those people were, watching directly on YouTube and how many were coming from Channel Awesome, because well, I just don't follow those analytics as much as I should. And I guess that's on me, on to change that. But that's kind of where I am personally with it. Now, as to the actual behind the scenes drama and all of that stuff that's going on, well, gonna have to kind of quote Hogan's Heroes here, and tell you that I know nothing. It's one of those things, right? Because it's one of those things where I just watch the videos and the live streams and all of that. I really have no idea of what's going on, behind the scenes, and all of that with, like the actual producers and whatnot. So all I've got to go on is, what the, former producers are saying, and, anything that Channel Awesome seems to care to say about their side of the story. Uh, from what I can tell, that's, nothing much. But, I honestly don't know how much I believe or don't believe, uh, about any of that. So I'm, not necessarily going to go and dig or anything because, well, the way I look at it, it's not anything I, really particularly need to, worry about right now. Uh, Given the way all this seems to be going, there's I'm going to say a reasonable chance that might change in the future. Uh, I honestly don't know uh, what's going on, but yeah, I have no idea about, who any of these, who really anybody involved with this, actually is, really, because I've never met any of them, much as I would have liked to in some cases, you know, because, well, from what I can tell, Doug Walker's somebody I would have liked to have met once. And so are Linkara and Nash and Brad Jones and all these other, folks I could probably sit here and list off, just so I could say I've, met them once and, make my own judgments about who these people are. But, as far as all of that goes, I don't know really all that much about, anything that, went on behind the scenes or, how good or bad anybody was to anybody else while they were involved with that. So I'm just going to try to leave that as it was. Um, and just say, hey, that when I was going for the videos. Haven't actually watched any, or haven't watched Nostalgia Critic on a regular basis in, year and a half. Barely bothered with Disney December the last couple of years. And I've been, watching the other producers from there that I usually watch on YouTube and their own sites as available. But, from there, all I can really do is, sit here and watch and see where all this plays out. It's one of those things where, if it's gone, it's gone. It's too bad it's going the way it is, but I suppose the end had to come eventually. So we'll just have to see how all this all plays out. And until then, I guess I'll see you around with, other stuff. So until I can, get some more written or another video made or something like that, I'll see you around, folks. You know, hope your spring's going better than mine. Uh, I'll see you around, everybody. Have a good however long.